as I've made super clear, I think it's important for us to focus on primarily super prominent media figures or people in positions of power, people trying to get in a position of power, right? If we put too much emphasis on random influencers out there, we can distort the reality of the significance of a certain ideology. And that's what exacerbates divisiveness, because both sides can just focus on the most extreme on the other, right? And that's why we try not to do too much. Just here's a random influencer being crazy. But occasionally, I do want to dip my toe into that water. It is interesting to y'all, just to give you a sense of what's out there, and how some people, instead of watching this sort of show, they're watching very different types of shows. And someone who launched a show of their own on the Censor.tv network named Lily Gaddis is crazy. So let's talk about her. I'll show you her inaugural show after being alienated from polite society because of her dropping of a racist slur. The Daily Beast reports on this, and I'll show you some video. The white trad wife TikToker who casually dropped the N-word in a cooking video that went viral Monday is already paying for her ignorance, with her employer, Roth of the Carolinas, announcing it had to let her go with immediate effect on Tuesday. The woman at the center of the controversy, Lily Gaddis, referred to her friend's husbands as broke-ass N-words in the clip, dropping the racial slur in a slight southern draw so naturally, many speculated she must use it in casual conversation. So again, that type of story is not really one that would normally come across my desk, for lack of a better phrase, to do on the show, because it just feels like out there, random thing going on. But the way that this has transitioned into a media career for her is a phenomenon separate from her as one particular example, I should say, is a phenomenon we see where the only reason a person is relevant is because they're touting that they've been deplatformed or censored in some way, and it creates some very strange and often really vile content. So again, this isn't really a debate about the repercussions of her words or the broader conversation around censorship. I don't even know what happened, if she got banned off TikTok or what. More about that sometimes becomes the premise for, hey, I should be a political commentator. And that's always just been a strange pipeline for me. And it yields content like this. Down the Line is the name of the show, Lily Gaddis. And here is her first episode.
And there are certain races that just don't like each other and they don't do well. And the internet is full of videos, although they're working overtime to try to scrub them off the internet, of videos of black people, of Muslims attacking white Christian people. So that's the real narrative, but that's not the one that the left wants to spin and the woke mob wants to run with. Because in this country, we have an abundance of victims, of wannabe victims, and a lack of real racists out there, okay? You can probably name on a hand some actual real racists who want to send them all back to Africa.
Right, because that's the only form of racism. So, what? Yeah, oh gosh. That's what this is for you, okay? Because you're living your life, probably like me, a little naive to the fact that, hello, this still exists. And what I want you to notice here, she goes, you can name on one hand the real racists. Then she proves herself to be a real racist, okay? Which I always like to contextualize this by saying, I understand there have been hyperbolic allegations of some of these terms of bigotry, right? Jumping to that too quickly instead of engaging with the substance of something. And that's why it's not that we levy this all the time. It's that when you're so blatantly bigoted, it's time that we just use the term racist. My colleague Jaden just told me, and you can look at this on screen, we're gonna put on screen. 5 million views last week came from people who aren't subscribed. If that's one of you, click that subscribe button, baby. It's easy, it's free, but it makes all the difference. Back to the video, because that's what we're seeing here. She goes, I'm not racist, but I'm racist.
of real racists out there, okay? You can probably name on a hand some actual real racists who want to send them all back to Africa. The most of us just want to say a racist joke here and there. We have a fair amount of racism that's just there for self-preservation and protection of our own species. And that's about it. Yep.
You know, Jaden found this video. I actually haven't watched it that far. What did I just hear? How can you self-humiliate that quickly in a bit of commentary? And I'm not even just saying that in sort of an insulting way. I mean, genuinely, how could you stumble into such a contradiction so quickly? Two crazy things she said. We're only 46 seconds in. She said like 10 crazy things. And in 5 seconds, she's able to fit two wild things. She goes, there's not real racists out there. You can count the real racists on your hand. But we all have racism in us to protect our species. So you're admitting you are then? And also, does she know what a species is? Lily, how dare you share my sister's name? Shameful. Let's see, though. She might spell it differently. Yes, she does. Okay, you're good, sister. You don't have to have that shared name. We're the same species. Lily. In a technical sense, it's not anything about protecting your species. We're the exact same species. A part of the crazy race science stuff that people like her would subscribe to, a part of how that was so utterly and completely debunked is by understanding that genetically, often people are so close genetically, sometimes more close to someone who quote unquote looks more different than them than a different person who looks more similar. And we're all a part of the same species. So in a technical sense, super wrong, but I don't want to get into that whole race science debate because that's just icky. But let's continue.
But in this country, you're not allowed to say that. And even though we have the First Amendment rights, do we really, though? Because the government may be able to be back and sit back and say, oh, no, you have your First Amendment rights. You can say whatever you want. But then they jail people for saying things that they don't like that girl that is facing a year in prison for saying the N-word a couple times in a drunken brawl. Really? Really, those are your villains. Me and her are your villains. Anyway.
I don't think you're... How do I say this? Let me first humble myself and then I'll humble her. I would never say, because I place myself in this world according to reality, right? So I would never think I'm one of the big villains to MAGA, because I'm not playing that big of a role in this space yet to say I'm one of the chief villains in MAGA minds. They go to bed, they think, curse Luke Beasley. No, I don't think that, because again, I know the proper reality that we're living in. It's a little much, Lily, for you to perceive yourself to be one of the key villains in the story that is America. Putting yourself on a strange pedestal there. I don't even know what she's referencing. I can tell you for sure no one has ever been put in prison just for saying the N-word, so that's dumb. Maybe it was the brawl that she got put into prison for, or if she implemented or inflicted violence on someone while saying the N-word, then the type of crime could be escalated, because what she's saying is evidence of intentions, which is constantly taken into consideration for crimes. If you're trying to classify, for example, a hate crime versus just a normal assault, but not super interested in that anecdote regardless. Instead, again, this being representative of something more significant, a phenomenon I see a lot, which is that idea expressed by people of you don't have the right, you're not allowed to say blank. Why aren't we allowed to say racist jokes? Why aren't we allowed to say the N-word? And that's, again, proof of a profound misunderstanding about the world on the part of Lily Gaddis. Which is to say, and a lot of people have this belief, That there's a difference between you not being allowed to do something and others being allowed to react to what you do. So her saying the N-word, she does have the legal right to do that. And we have the legal right to shame her for it or to not associate with her. And yes, private companies, social media outlets have the legal right to have a terms of service that outlines what you can and can't do on their private platform and then act accordingly. And so people get caught up in this spiral where they want to do a horrible thing because they think they don't have the right to, but they should. When they actually do have the right to, they're just living in a world where other people have rights to then hate them for it, right? You're not being canceled or suppressed if other people scream at you or unfollow you or don't go to your show or something because they're mad at you for something you said. Maybe in certain circumstances when people do that, I would say that's an overreaction from people. In this case, I don't think that's what we're seeing, but everyone's acting within their right in that environment. And we can say that you are and believe you to be a vile person. We all have those rights after you choose to exercise your right in a way that shows us who you are. But the MAGA victimhood, and I don't even want to make this too much about MAGA, but this far right, whatever you call this sort of thing, loves the whole story being, I've been outcasted, or I'm a victim. They don't want me to be able to say this, so that means I have to say it. And I don't understand what value's coming of that, because you're not actually demonstrating that rights are being infringed on, because they're not, but instead that you a weirdo. Let me know what you thought of that in the comments. If you want to get extra content daily, you can do it by clicking the join button below.